All right. So I'll quickly go through some migration steps. These are the four steps that you have to take before you migrate, right? What's the process look like? So first and foremost, you need some technologies, some key resources, developers, some analysts who understand GA4. So key and important thing is like just identify a resource who know the basics of GA4, who know the basics of JavaScript, who know the basics of tracking. That's definitely a requirement. And the developer is the one who is going to create a lot of data that is required to track our marketing KPIs. Then prepare a migration checklist. I have created a migration checklist. I'm going to send that migration checklist as part of the post webinar email. So you're going to get that free of cost. And identify and create a project plan. Project plan would start with understanding, like, what's the current state of the analytics look like, what are the KPIs that you are currently using, and then go and interview your stakeholders, business stakeholders who need this data to do better decision, right? Try to understand what they need and then add all the KPIs that is needed for that tracking as well. Then the next thing that you have to do is like audit your existing tags, right? You can go to Tag Manager, or you can go to analytics to look and find out what are the key measurement, key performance indicator that we are tracking through different mechanisms, whether it's goal, whether it's event, etc. Audit everything and put that into one spreadsheet and try to have an explanation of each of the KPIs that you are tracking and how you are tracking, and then use that as a starting point for your migration. Whatever that is being put on your existing Tag Manager, existing analytics, then you have to take that over and transform it to the new GA4 systems. And then basically the most important part of this GA4 migration is basically creating the data layer, configuration, and variables. Like I said earlier, you can have as many parameters as you need, whether it's there are two types of parameters, user parameters and event parameters. So the number of parameters can vary, based on your need of tracking, it can vary. At the same time, what does that mean for you as a developer is basically, you need to understand how you're going to show that data in the data layer so that you can grab the data, you can put it in the GA4. So you need somebody who is well versed with understanding of KPIs, and then understanding how they can put it in the proper data layer, data in your web page, in your mobile app, etc. And I always advise to use Google Tag Manager just because it's much more flexible. It's much more easier to, you don't want tags to appear in different places, and then it becomes a mess. So that's why I always advise to have it in one place. You don't install anything other than Tag Manager on your site or your mobile app, and then use Tag Manager to send pixels of GA4, send pixels of Google AdWords, conversion API, whatever that you have, do through GTM. And the most important measure is basically try to understand whatever KPI that you are putting in GA4. Try to understand what is the variance between that number versus what you had been reporting on Universal Analytics. You definitely see a lot of variation, but that's okay because it's completely different way of tracking data. So 10%, 5 to 10% variance, fine. More than that, then you need to look into why that's happening. Then finally launch the GA4, and then after that post QA is basically trying to understand the difference between what Universal Analytics is reporting versus GA4 is reporting. So you have to use that in parallel. Then only you can understand the difference. Then only you will understand the variance, right? Then you try to switch over to GA4 and eventually. So you have little over 2 months left right now. But that's still a good time for me to at least try to educate your stakeholders, try to understand the change that is happening, and try to switch from UA for report universal analytics reporting to GA4. And few other considerations that you have to take is basically how you're going to keep your data backup, whether you're going to use a BigQuery or other cloud that you have, whether you have your own instance of SQL that you have that you can use there. So that's a mechanism that you have to identify. And then similarly for universal analytics, how do you back up it? How do you process the data? Are you going to upload into Google spreadsheet and use a data studio to run to read the report? Are you going to run that via BigQuery or your PostgreSQL or MySQL SQL to run your data? That's all up to you. There is a flexibility that you have to do it, but again, the challenge here is that it does need technical knowledge. You need somebody who is well versed with writing SQL to run your future reports. Once you backed up to some SQL database, whether it's BigQuery or some other thing, you still need somebody who is well versed in SQL to understand and try to do that to your KPIs into a data studio dashboard, a Looker Studio dashboard, or your Tableau or whatever visualization tool that you are using for your reporting. And also one important thing, as I mentioned earlier, we are going through a change where a lot of vendors are just deleting the third-party data, third-party cookie data. So which means that tomorrow if something changes, you're gonna lose a lot of data. So I always suggest that you consider server-side tag management. So you take this. Currently, the client-side tag management is basically all the tags are stored in your GTM tag, and that is owned by Google. So, but you can take the data back to your own server if you wanted to, whether it's BigQuery owned by you or some other cloud that you have. I always suggest that it's important that you consider server-side tagging so that in the future, things like big changes happen, you still own the data. All right, so it's a lot of change. So what we have done is basically we put together some templates for Looker Studio using universal use for your GA4 to read the GA4 report. So what we have created is basically created a template that looks similar to universal analytics, but for reading GA4 data. And I will provide the template as part of the email, or we may be uploading it on our site at a later point. We will definitely inform you about that. So what about the universal analytics data? So there are two things that you can do. Basically, you can simply go to Google Analytics and export data one by one and store in spreadsheet. That's a little a lot of work, but there is some connectors that you can use. One is basically Google Analytics spreadsheet add-on, and you can take up to 6 months of data using it. I suggest that if your data is more than 100K user per month, I suggest that you use every 3 months data to use to store in your spreadsheet, or you can use Supermetrics add-on to get the data from Universal Analytics. Once you have stored that somewhere, whether it's Google spreadsheets or somewhere else, you can use a Looker Studio to report whatever report that you've been using, create that in Looker Studio to read a report. And we also have created one for you, and we will provide that as part of post emailer. And second thing is basically whether you wanted to have a robust way of storing the data, then you may have to consider Google BigQuery or PostgreSQL, and here also Supermetrics tool could be very useful for you. So some of the tools and platforms that you could use. One of the tools that I always suggest that somebody who has got a lot of SQL expertise in-house is Analytics Canvas. It's a little expensive. I think it's about $22.50 to $260 monthly, but it's a drag drop mechanism. Instead of writing SQL, it will write SQL its own. So we don't have to write SQL for processing your data. For data storage, these are the key main storage mechanism that you can use. The key platforms: BigQuery, GA4, Tag Manager, Looker Studio, and Google Marketing Cloud. Are there any alternative? Yeah, there are alternatives, but it has its own advantages and disadvantages. One of the surprising fact, which I kind of very interesting, is that GA4 is still not a GDPR compliant product, because you cannot choose where your data reside. That means that it's violating the fundamentals of GDPR. But because we are based in Canada, if you're serving CCPA, it's a CCPA compliant solution. And then you have Adobe Analytics, which is the best among all of the available here. It's even less costlier than GA4 360, by the way, and it has got much more better retention frequency, etc. So you don't have to reinvent this wheel. Basically, we have gone through this for our several customers. We have worked with this, over different customers, regulatory frameworks, try to put together different things to for our customers so they can do that pretty easily. Usually, some of our migrations take 2 to 3 weeks. Sometimes it takes more, depending upon your client. But generally, it's going to take approximately 3 weeks to migrate your data. I'm also giving about 6 meetings per month to customers who need some guidance. I'll provide my link as part of post mailer, so you can book 30 minutes meeting with me. I give six meeting monthly on a first come first serve basis. That's all I have. I know that I haven't gone through in depth, but that's itself took us almost 40 minutes. That's kind of end of the webinar. But if you have any question, I'm more than free to answer right now. Where is the question? How do I see the Q&A? Okay. Hello.
Sorry, my internet just dropped for a little bit.
Do we have any questions?
Yeah, if anyone has any questions, again, feel free to drop them in the chat bar, or if you'd like me to mute you, you could just raise your hand and I can give you the platform to speak. Looks like people understood everything you're saying.
That's something that's very surprising, because it's much more complicated topic than this. So either they didn't understand what I said, or
oh, sorry, you got someone here who's got their hand raised. Just a second.
The answer is no. But okay,
sorry, there's just someone who had their hand raised. Ido, go ahead, and then Elke, you can go after.
Yeah, thank you very much, Mr. Sanil. Buzz, thank you so much for that lecture. So I wanted to ask this question. Can you talk a little bit more about tag managers, how to set them up?
Yeah, sure. So let me see if I have a... So basically, Tag Manager is a tagging system where if you have different types of marketing pictures that you need to track, that you can use the tag manager to data to track your data. So what does that mean? So if all you have to do is basically you create a Google Analytics account, Google Tag Manager account, and then place your. Let me show you how. Let me show you an example. Can you see my screen?
Yes, I can. Thank you.
So so basically you create a Google Tag Manager account, and then you can install the tag manager, only the tag manager into your web app or your mobile app. And then once you install it, tag manager, what you could do is like you can create your own tags, whether it's a conversion API or I mean, this is a little complicated because this is a server side. I'm just gonna go to a simple client side. Basically, that's become a little bit easier for you. Maybe a different one. So how you install it? So once you create your tag manager account, they can install a cookie that you can get it from there. This is a cookie that you placed in the head, and then there is a cookie that you place after the body. Once you place this, then you don't need to add any cookies in any pixels inside the in the web page or anywhere in your mobile app. All of that can be managed through tags here. So this is the GA4 code that you can create. This is a measurement ID that you can see. Let me show you where the measurement ID resides. So this is GA4, and so that's your measurement ID. Okay, you can copy that, and yeah, you can copy that and then put in here. This is a measurement ID, and then whatever data that these are the variables that I was talking about earlier, right? What kind of data that you can use n number of variable. So once you save that, the GA4 will be installed on your system, on your mobile app. You don't have to go and put the GA4 code inside the website, but the tag manager will do it for you. Any tag that you need, you can add it here. Say for example, pixel code for Facebook, it's added here, and it's going to appear on all the pages. Similarly, tag manager is a system where you can install different types of tags inside tag manager. Does that answer your question? I know that it's I haven't gone through detail just because we have a limited time. But like I discussed earlier, I am more than happy to spend 30 minutes with people who may have questions. There was another question that I just saw in here. GA4 is a paid platform. It is not a paid platform, but your data storage is limited. It's based on the number of users that you have. You have to store your data somewhere. That there it becomes you may have to pay for your data storage cost, processing cost, etc. So that where there is a little bit of extra cost, even if you're using a GA4 for your analytics. Does that answer the question?
Okay, they said yes in the chat. Awesome. And there was someone else who had their hand raised. I think you can go ahead.
Thanks. I'm coming from a business owner perspective where I set up Google Analytics thinking one day I will actually use it. And so far, honestly, I don't use it. Do you have any idea how much it will cost to have someone help me set up U4 and how to, like the templates sound like great, learn what to export every 3 months, which is like a range? Like I
Uh,
found the seminar was a little bit hard for me to follow because I have no development background.
right. Yeah, that's where it's become a little bit challenging. But I think like, the basic setups won't cost you that much. Maybe like, between, $400 to $500, you can do pretty much the basic setup for a small business that can be done.
Okay, that's right to know. I just wanted to arrange. Thank you.
Thank you. Any other question?
But maybe if I have you still on that, and you do think it'd be a lot better for someone who has no development background to have some help to set that up properly and learn what to export and what to look for.
Again, you don't need, based on your need, right? Like you said, you are not using Google Analytics as much as then basic things can be set up on your own, and there is a lot of videos out there which you can use, but because it's a little technical, I suggest that you use somebody with some knowledge in GA4 or some knowledge in technology. Would be helpful.
Thank you very much.
Any other question?
No more questions? Okay. If folks don't have any questions right now and something pops up, feel free to reach out to Sanil with any other questions you have or any info. Sanil, what's the best way to reach you?
It is through my email. I'm gonna put that in here in the chat. Give me 1 second.
Awesome.
I am available on chat, on email and here.
Okay, there we go. Right, so you can feel free to reach out to him there if there are no more questions. Otherwise, thank you so much, Sanil, for taking the time out of your day to do this. And thank you to all the participants for joining the call today. As I said, we'll send over the recording after the session, and along with some resources that Sanil mentioned during this session. So everyone have a wonderful rest of your day. Sanil, I'll be in touch after this, and I'll see you folks again soon. Take care, everyone.
Thank you. Thank you, everyone. Bye.
Okay. Bye. Let's see.